Here's Act 1 in a reusable script format. Humanity had faced threats before. Asteroids, pandemics, wars. None of them compared to what arrived beyond Neptune. The first reports came from deep space observatories. Thousands of unidentified contacts had emerged from faster-than-light transit at the edge of the solar system. Within hours, thousands became tens of thousands. By the end of the day, the count exceeded 50,000 warships. The invasion Armada belonged to the Dominion Coalition, a power feared across hundreds of star systems. Entire civilizations had disappeared after resisting them. Others survived only by accepting occupation. Their message reached Earth less than an hour later. Humanity was ordered to surrender all planetary governments, military forces, and orbital infrastructure within 72 hours. Failure to comply would result in immediate pacification. The transmission ended with a detailed demonstration of the Coalition's capabilities. Images of shattered worlds and burning fleets filled every screen on Earth. The message achieved exactly what it was designed to achieve: fear. Financial markets collapsed. Emergency sessions were called across the globe. Military forces moved to full readiness. From the outside, humanity appeared divided and terrified. Coalition intelligence officers watched every broadcast they could intercept. They observed political arguments, conflicting military assessments, and endless debates. To them, Earth's reaction was predictable. The species was already preparing to surrender. As the hours passed, Coalition fleets advanced deeper into the solar system. Massive formations spread across strategic positions. Reconnaissance vessels scanned Mars, Earth, and the outer colonies. Their reports brought unexpected amusement. Human defenses appeared weak. The number of active warships was far below what Coalition analysts had anticipated. Orbital weapons networks were limited. No hidden fleets appeared. No advanced superweapons were detected. The invasion commander, Grand Admiral Threx, became increasingly confident. Humanity had courage, perhaps. But courage would not stop 50,000 warships. 48 hours before the surrender deadline, he addressed the entire fleet. The humans understand their situation. Resistance would be irrational. They will submit, and this campaign will conclude without unnecessary losses. The officers listening to him agreed. Everything was proceeding according to expectation. Then humanity sent a response. No grand speech accompanied it. No threats. No demands. Just a single message transmitted across every Coalition communication channel. You are ordered to depart immediately. A brief pause followed. Then the message continued. This is your final warning. Silence spread through command centers across the Armada. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then laughter erupted. Officers mocked the transmission openly. Fleet commanders replayed it for entertainment. Even Admiral Threx struggled to hide his amusement. A species facing extinction had chosen to issue threats to the largest invasion force in known space. The warning was dismissed immediately. Coalition ships continued advancing toward the inner solar system. The countdown to humanity's surrender resumed. But deep within classified facilities hidden across Earth, reactions were very different. No one was laughing. Emergency protocols that had remained dormant for centuries suddenly activated. Ancient monitoring systems began reporting the same impossible conclusion. The Armada's growing presence near the Sun was destabilizing something humanity had spent generations protecting. And for the first time in recorded history, containment levels were falling. Continuing directly from Act 1. For most of human history, the truth had been buried beneath layers of secrecy so deep that even national leaders knew only fragments of it. The invasion had forced those barriers to disappear. Hours after the final warning was ignored, emergency councils received access to records that had remained classified for centuries. The files revealed a discovery that dated back to humanity's earliest expansion beyond Earth. At first, scientists believed the Sun was behaving strangely. Small anomalies appeared within its core. Energy patterns emerged that could not be explained by known physics. The deeper researchers looked, the more impossible the findings became. The Sun contained something artificial. Hidden beneath layers of stellar plasma was a structure larger than entire planets. It had not been built by humans. In fact, it was older than human civilization by billions of years. The structure's purpose became clear only after decades of study. It was a prison. Not a prison for criminals. A prison for entities. Ancient forms of existence that predated modern galaxies. The builders had left warnings throughout the containment network. Most were incomplete, damaged by unimaginable spans of time, but one message remained clear. The prisoners could never be released. Humanity never learned who the builders were or what ultimately happened to them. What humanity did inherit was responsibility. Generation after generation, hidden organizations monitored the prison's condition. Specialized facilities were constructed throughout the solar system. Entire branches of science evolved around maintaining systems nobody fully understood. For centuries, the prison remained stable. Until now. As coalition fleets moved closer to the Sun, their combined mass, power generation, and hyperspace field emissions began interfering with containment mechanisms that had functioned flawlessly for ages. The effects appeared small at first. Then they accelerated. Monitoring stations detected pressure spikes inside the prison. Energy barriers fluctuated. Ancient systems that had remained silent for millennia suddenly activated. The warnings became impossible to ignore. Human analysts calculated the outcome repeatedly. Every simulation reached the same conclusion. If the Armada remained where it was, containment failure was inevitable. Humanity immediately transmitted additional warnings. The messages were more detailed than before. Coalition commanders were informed that their operations threatened a catastrophic event. Coordinates were provided. Scientific evidence was included. Human experts even offered to share classified data proving the danger. The response from the Armada was unanimous. Rejection. Coalition leaders believed humanity had simply invented a more elaborate lie. From their perspective, the story was absurd. A secret prison hidden inside a star sounded less like intelligence and more like desperation. Admiral Threx dismissed the claims without hesitation. He ordered the fleet to continue advancing. Several formations moved even closer to the Sun to tighten operational control over the inner solar system. Within hours, containment integrity dropped below levels never previously recorded. Across hidden monitoring facilities, red alerts filled every display. Automatic safeguards began activating. Emergency systems started preparing for a scenario humanity had hoped would never occur. For centuries, countless generations had successfully preserved the prison. Now that responsibility was slipping away. And deep within the Sun, something ancient had begun pushing back against its cage. Continuing directly from Act 2. The prison failed 12 hours later. No explosion marked the moment. No shockwave raced across the solar system. The first sign was far more disturbing. The Sun changed. Astronomical observatories detected impossible distortions spreading across its surface. Regions of plasma began moving against known physical laws. Light itself appeared to bend in unnatural patterns. Coalition scientists initially assumed their instruments were malfunctioning. Then warships started disappearing. A destroyer positioned near the inner perimeter vanished from every sensor network simultaneously. There was no debris. No energy release. No distress call. One moment it existed. The next moment it did not. Fleet commanders ordered immediate investigations. Before answers could be found, 3 more vessels disappeared. Then 12. Then hundreds. Panic spread through the Armada. Something was emerging from the Sun. At first, the entities had no clear shape. They appeared as shifting distortions surrounded by impossible gravitational effects. Sensors produced contradictory readings. Every attempt to classify them ended in failure. What remained consistent was their behavior. They consumed. Matter vanished in their presence. Energy vanished. Entire capital ships were erased as if they had never existed. Retreat orders finally came from Admiral Threx, but the decision arrived too late. The Armada's dense formations had become a trap. Thousands of vessels attempted emergency jumps simultaneously. Navigation networks collapsed under the chaos. Ships collided. Escape routes failed. More entities poured from the growing breach. For the first time in centuries of conquest, the Dominion coalition faced something it could not fight. Something it could not even understand. Then humanity revealed its final secret. Across the solar system, dormant structures activated. Objects previously catalogued as harmless moons, asteroids, and abandoned stations unfolded into vast machines hidden for ages. Ancient networks came online. Signals older than human civilization raced between worlds. Weapons built by the prison's creators awakened. Massive beams struck the advancing entities. Containment fields formed around regions of space. For the first time since the breach began, the creatures slowed. Human command centers coordinated the defense with practiced efficiency. Not because they had trained for victory. Because they had trained for survival. Every emergency protocol had been refined across centuries. Human crews immediately understood their objective. The alien fleet was no longer the enemy. The entities were. Warships that had prepared to defend Earth suddenly redirected toward containment operations. Hidden installations revealed themselves. Long secret stockpiles were deployed without hesitation. Losses mounted rapidly. Several defense stations were destroyed within minutes of activation. Entire human crews knowingly remained at failing facilities long enough to complete critical containment procedures. Still, the ancient entities continued pushing outward. Each kilometer they advanced increased the danger beyond the solar system. Admiral Threx watched the battle unfold from his flagship and finally understood the truth. Humanity's warning had never been a threat. It had been a desperate attempt to prevent exactly this disaster. And if the entities escaped, every civilization in the galaxy would suffer the consequences. Continuing directly from Act 3. The conclusion of the story is below. The battle for containment lasted 3 days. By then, the Dominion coalition no longer resembled an invasion force. What remained of the Armada was scattered across the solar system, battered by losses that exceeded anything in its recorded history. Entire fleets had vanished. Admirals who once commanded thousands of warships now struggled to coordinate a few surviving formations. Yet the ancient entities continued advancing. Every containment line humanity established eventually failed under relentless pressure. Every defensive victory bought only minutes. The situation grew worse with each passing hour. Human analysts reached a grim conclusion. If the breach remained open much longer, the entities would escape the solar system entirely. Once that happened, no force in the galaxy would be capable of stopping them. Human command authorized the final safeguard. A contingency hidden since the day the prison was discovered. The plan carried a terrible cost. To rebuild the containment network, enormous amounts of energy would be required. Ancient systems buried within the sun could provide that energy, but only if manually activated from multiple relay stations positioned throughout the inner solar system. The operators assigned to those stations understood the consequences immediately. Activation meant death. No evacuation was possible. No rescue could arrive in time. Not a single crew refused. Across dozens of installations, final confirmations were transmitted. Then the sequence began. One by one, the relay stations came online. Human crews remained at their posts as containment surges consumed entire facilities. Some continued transmitting status updates until the very last seconds. The sacrifice worked. Ancient machinery dormant for billions of years awakened fully. Massive containment fields expanded outward from the sun. The escaping entities were forced backward. One after another, breaches closed. The largest entity resisted until the very end. It tore through multiple defensive barriers and nearly escaped the collapsing containment zone. Human and coalition ships attacked together. Former enemies fought side by side. Thousands of vessels were lost holding the line. Eventually, the entity was driven back into the prison. The final breach sealed moments later. For the first time in days, the solar system fell silent. The crisis was over. The cost was staggering. Millions were dead. entire human installations had been destroyed. The Dominion Coalition had lost most of the force it had brought to conquer Earth. But the galaxy still existed. Weeks later, Admiral Threx addressed representatives from hundreds of civilizations. The speech was broadcast across known space. He spoke not of military defeat, but of failure. The failure to listen. The failure to understand. The failure to respect a warning that had been freely given. He revealed everything humanity had tried to protect. The prison. The entities. The sacrifices made to contain them. Most importantly, he revealed one final truth. Humanity had every opportunity to abandon the invading fleet to its fate. They could have focused solely on protecting themselves. Instead, they fought to save the very people who had come to destroy them. The galaxy would remember that lesson. For centuries, many had judged humanity by the size of its fleets and the limits of its territory. Now they understood humanity's true strength. Not superior weapons. Not superior numbers. Responsibility. For generations, humans had carried a burden no one else even knew existed. And when disaster finally arrived, they carried it for everyone. The surviving worlds never forgot the message that had started it all. You are ordered to depart immediately. This is your final warning. It had never been a threat. It had been a chance to be saved.